In the evolving geopolitical landscape of the 21st century, a seismic shift is quietly unfolding, one that may reshape global power dynamics for decades to come. This shift, often compared to the New Cold War, is marked not by overt military confrontations, but by a much subtler battle for economic influence and strategic alliances. What was once a unipolar world dominated by the United States, particularly in the sphere of global energy markets, is now slowly transitioning toward a more multipolar order led by China. At the heart of this transformation lies a symbol that is both shocking and game-changing. Saudi Arabia, a nation historically tied to the United States and its petrodollar system, is now preparing to accept Chinese yuan alongside the US dollar in its oil sales. This quiet, yet potentially devastating move threatens to unravel one of the most powerful pillars of American influence, the dollar's exclusive role in global oil transactions, which has been firmly entrenched since the 1970s. The announcement of this shift was first reported by the South China Morning Post and was later echoed by other major financial outlets such as Bloomberg and the Financial Times. Although Riyadh has refrained from making an official statement, sources within the OPEC structure and anonymous negotiators confirm that this monumental decision is not just being discussed, but is already nearing fruition. If Saudi Arabia begins to sell oil in yuan, the ripple effects will be felt far beyond the oil fields of the kingdom. The U.S., which has long used its dollar-based system to exert financial control over the global economy, will face an existential crisis. To understand the magnitude of this potential shift, one must first grasp the significance of the petrodollar system. In the aftermath of the 1973 oil crisis, the United States brokered an agreement with Saudi Arabia whereby the kingdom would sell its oil exclusively in US dollars. In exchange, the US would provide military protection to the Saudi regime and offer political support. This deal created an insatiable global demand for dollars, as every nation that wanted to purchase oil was required to hold and trade in American currency. This system served as the cornerstone of U.S. dominance in the global economy. The dollar became the world's reserve currency, its value propped up by the ever-increasing demand for oil. It allowed the United States to run persistent trade deficits, accumulate massive national debt, and finance its wars without facing the same economic consequences as other nations would. Simply put, the petrodollar system was a tool of geopolitical leverage, ensuring the United States' supremacy in the global financial order. But now, the ground is shifting beneath America's feet. If Saudi Arabia, a key American ally and the world's largest oil exporter, begins accepting yuan for its oil, it would mark the beginning of the end of the petrodollar era. This is not just a symbolic gesture. It would represent a fundamental reordering of the global energy market. As oil transactions begin to move away from the dollar, the world's demand for U.S. currency will gradually decline, leading to a potential devaluation of the dollar. Central banks across the globe may start diversifying their reserves away from the dollar, thereby undermining its dominance. China, for its part, has been methodically laying the groundwork for this transition over the past several years. Under President Xi Jinping, China has pursued an aggressive foreign policy to expand its influence, particularly in the energy sector. Beijing has invested heavily in Saudi Arabia's infrastructure, built petrochemical plants, and extended credit lines in yuan. In 2021, during a high-profile visit to Riyadh, Xi Jinping declared, "Energy is the heart of our strategic partnership." At the time, these words were seen by many as mere diplomatic rhetoric. Today, however, it is clear that they were part of a well-calculated strategy to challenge American hegemony in the global energy market. China's role in the global energy sector has been expanding steadily. As part of its Belt and Road Initiative, Beijing has deepened its ties with oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia, Russia, and Iran. The yuan has already made inroads in trade agreements with these countries, and now, Riyadh's potential move to accept yuan for oil is a significant step toward consolidating China's financial influence. According to sources within OPEC, The first yuan-denominated oil deals could be signed as early as the next quarter, signaling the start of a new era in global energy transactions. In typical fashion, former President Donald Trump has responded to this challenge with his trademark bravado. On Truth Social, he issued a direct warning to Saudi Arabia: "America will not tolerate betrayal. Any country that turns against the dollar will pay a price." The White House, under President Joe Biden, has reportedly considered imposing tariffs on Saudi steel and aluminum, as well as restricting arms sales to the kingdom. These threats, however, are unlikely to have much impact on Riyadh. Saudi Arabia's status as the world's largest oil exporter means that its resources are too valuable to be easily influenced by tariffs or sanctions. Moreover, the kingdom possesses its own levers of power. It can cut oil production, reduce its purchases of American weapons, or shift its investments toward China, actions that would severely undermine American influence in the region. This dynamic highlights a crucial point. Saudi Arabia no longer feels it is beholden to the United States. The U.S.'s diminishing role as a guarantor of security in the Middle East has been exposed by the failure of its interventions in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan. As Riyadh increasingly turns to China for economic and technological cooperation, the U.S. finds itself in the uncomfortable position of losing its most important ally in the region. China, by contrast, offers investments, infrastructure development, and technology without the political baggage of ideological pressure. For Saudi Arabia, this makes China a more attractive partner than the United States, especially as the kingdom seeks to assert its growing independence on the global stage. The ramifications of Saudi Arabia's decision go far beyond the kingdom itself. If Riyadh begins to accept yuan for oil, it is likely that other countries will follow suit. Egypt, the UAE, and Qatar, all of which have close ties to both Saudi Arabia and the U.S., will closely watch the developments in Riyadh. If Saudi Arabia can make the shift without significant repercussions from the U.S., other nations may soon begin to make similar moves. In that case, the world could see a gradual yet decisive shift away from the dollar in global energy markets. Experts are already discussing the possibility of de-dollarization spreading to other sectors beyond oil. If 20 to 30% of global oil trade begins to be conducted in yuan, it could trigger a domino effect. Gas, coal, and rare earth metals would likely follow suit, further cementing China's control over global commodity markets. This would give China unprecedented leverage over world markets, further eroding the U.S.'s ability to dictate terms in international trade. Moreover, the shift to the yuan could have profound implications for the global financial system. The petrodollar system has allowed the U.S. to run trade deficits and fund its military interventions with little regard for its national debt. If the yuan replaces the dollar as the dominant currency in global energy trade, the U.S. will lose its ability to print money at will without facing the consequences of inflation or economic instability. The loss of this petrodollar privilege would fundamentally alter the global financial landscape, diminishing American influence and elevating China to a new position of global power. What we are witnessing, then, is the gradual yet undeniable decline of the petrodollar system. Saudi Arabia's potential shift to the yuan is a critical turning point in the history of global energy trade. If this trend continues, we could soon see the rise of the Petroyuan as the new standard in international energy transactions. As the dollar loses its monopoly over global oil trade, China will emerge as the new leader in energy diplomacy, reshaping the global economy in its image. This shift will not happen overnight, but it is already in motion. Analysts predict that in the coming years, the world's energy markets will become increasingly denominated in yuan, with the US dollar gradually losing its primacy. The long-term consequences of this shift could be profound, both for the global financial system and for the United States itself. If China successfully displaces the U.S. as the dominant player in global energy markets, it will mark the beginning of a new era in which the yuan, not the dollar, holds the key to global economic power. In the coming months, the first major contracts between Saudi Aramco and Chinese petrochemical corporations could set the stage for this seismic shift. As the U.S. clings to its old power structures, China is already writing the new rules of the game. If the dollar's grip on the global energy market continues to loosen, the world may soon be talking not about the petrodollar, but about the Petroyuan. This would mark the dawn of a new geopolitical era, one where China, not the United States, sets the terms of global trade and economic dominance.